Lakeland Public Television and area news partners are proud to present Debate Night 2012, a look at our area legislative candidates. And now, the State House of Representatives District 10B debate. Your moderator tonight is Ray Gildow.
Welcome to the last debate of our series of 11 debates for Election Debate 2012. I'm Ray Gildow, and we're coming to you live from our Brainerd studio. And our last debate is involving House 10B rather, House District 10B. And our candidates are Dale Lueck, who is a Republican candidate, and the Democratic candidate is Joe Radinovich. And Joe, would you raise your hand so people can recognize which one is which there? Thank you very much. I'm just going to take a second to relay the rules to everyone for the last time this evening. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to do the opening comments. The panel will ask questions after the opening comments. Some will be their own questions, and some will be questions that have come from members of the public. The candidates will rotate in the order that they speak, beginning with opening comments and finishing with closing comments. Each candidate gets 2 minutes to answer the questions, and each candidate will have a 1 minute opportunity for a rebuttal, or you can pass on that opportunity if you prefer not to have any rebuttal. Questions will continue until we are about 50 minutes into the debate when we move to the closing comments. The closing comments will be 2 minutes then. And we're going to start this evening with the opening comments from Mr. Lueck, and have at it.
Good evening, folks. I want to thank the viewers for tuning in tonight and our panel and Lakeland TV for providing the citizens of Aiken and Crow Wing County this opportunity to see and hear from both Joe and I. I'm 62 years old. My wife Linda and I have been married 43 years. We have 2 grown children, 4 grandchildren. I was born and raised in the Aiken area. I graduated from Aiken High School in 1967. Like many of the veterans watching tonight, I came of age during the Vietnam era. Rather than wait to be drafted, I enlisted in the Navy as a fireman recruit and then spent the next 28 years in the Navy. During my time in the Navy, I advanced from the enlisted ranks and eventually commissioned as an officer. I was retired at the rank of commander. My educational background includes a Bachelor of Science degree in Occupational Health and Safety, a Business Administration degree also. After completing my career in the Navy, Linda and I returned home to Minnesota 15 years ago. We raised beef cattle on our 340-acre farm, which includes land that my parents and grandparents also farmed before us. I've also started a newspaper publishing business, which I've operated for the past 10 years. A question that most of you probably have is, why am I running for office? Well, I believe each of us has a duty to serve our community and our country. Serving in elected office is just one of the many ways that we can do that, particularly if one has acquired the life experience and knowledge to do a good job, but particularly for the citizens of District 10B. I'm no stranger to community service. I've twice been elected as an Aiken County Commissioner. I've served as a member of my church council, as a director on the Arrowhead Economic Opportunity Agency, and the Aiken County Housing and Rehabilitation Authority. I'm currently privileged to serve as the president of the Aiken-Carleton County Farm Bureau, and I'm also chair of our Aiken County Planning Commission. I see 2 major challenges ahead of us that we really need to pay attention to. First, job creation. Minnesota's business climate is the job-killing 45th worst in the nation. That's just totally unacceptable. I'll work hard to improve our business climate. That'll create good jobs and economic opportunity. It's time that we bring those good jobs here to rural Minnesota. We've got to stop exporting our children and grandchildren to the metro area or out of state to find those good-paying jobs. Second, fiscal responsibility. Government must live within its means, just like the rest of us. I'll make those tough choices necessary to keep spending under control. I had to do that while I was raising a family as a young enlisted man in the Navy and later as a senior program manager. For the past 15 years as a small businessman in rural Minnesota, I've had to do the same. So we look forward tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lueck. Mr. Radinovich.
Well, thank you to Lakeland Public Television and the Morrison County Record as well as KAXE for collaborating on this project. I'd like to thank the panelists. I'd like to thank the moderator, thank my opponent for showing up, and most of all, I'd like to thank the viewers at home for taking time out of their day to tune in and learn more about the differences between my opponent and I. My name is Joe Radinovich, and I'm running for the Minnesota House in District 10B. The district is a new one, and it includes all of Aiken County and the eastern portion of Crow Wing County, including many of the rural areas and small towns. I'm a fourth-generation Cuyuna Ranger. I hope you folks viewing on the Aiken side won't hold that against me tonight. I know that our small towns share more than just a sports rivalry. I'm in this race because my nieces and nephews are going to schools that have less opportunity than I did when I was a student. In Crosby, 55% of their classmates are on free or reduced lunch. In Aiken, that number is 65%. Many of these students have parents who have been out of work for a year, and others have parents who are working 3 jobs just to make ends meet. These are the challenges facing my generation. Across the district, we've seen higher than average unemployment, peaking at 20% in the construction sector in the Brainerd Lakes area. My family is one of plumbers, electricians, pipe fitters, and other laborers, and so that number greatly affected their livelihood. Our district has seen property taxes rise dramatically over the last decade, and particularly since the last session when the homestead tax credit was repealed. At a time of high unemployment, those property tax increases have been particularly hard on families who are trying to stay in their homes or seniors who are living on a fixed income. It's been said that my generation may be one of the first to not do as well as my parents. And I believe that we need a legislature that's willing to work together to tackle the challenges in front of us. I look forward to the opportunity to answer the questions and for the voters to learn more about my opponent and myself. Thank you.
Thank you. We now move into the questioning period of our debate. And I'd like to introduce, first of all, the panelists this evening. Dennis Wyman is the news director for Lakeland Public Television. You're also the 10 o'clock anchor. You see him almost every evening with your only local news station. I'd also like to introduce Scott Hall, who is the general manager for KAXE Radio in Grand Rapids. That's a public radio station, rather, in the Grand Rapids area. Mr. Hall, we're going to start with you with the first question directed towards Mr. Radinovich.
Thank you, Ray, and you just gave me a big promotion, you know.
Was it?
I'm not the general manager, but that's okay.
But you could use it, I think.
I hope my boss isn't watching.
Okay.
It's all right. Thanks to the candidates for being here today. And you represent in 10B the rural part of Senate District 10, and which is all of Aiken County and a little bit of the east side of Crow Wing County. And I noted that you have four, correct me if I'm wrong here, 4 small school districts: Aiken, Hill City, Crosby, Ironton, McGregor in your district. And the small school districts have an advantage in that they often have those small class sizes, but they often don't have the resources to deliver the depth and the breadth of education that we want our kids to have. So how would you as a representative be sensitive and represent the interest of small school districts?
Is the camera on?
Yeah, you're up. Joe, you're up. Yep. Mr. Radinovich.
Well, you know, one thing is actually there are a few more districts inside District 10B, or actually the schools are just outside the lines, and so students go to also Isle and even to Hinckley Finlayson, Pequot Lakes, to Brainerd as well. But, you know, small school districts are really the reason that I'm in this race. I grew up in Crosby, Ironton, and for the better part of the last decade, actually a little bit more than that, we've been in a position where we've had to cut teachers and programs. And so in my district, we've seen cuts to gifted and enriched programming for elementary and junior high students. We've seen shop classes cut in half, foreign languages, arts programs, you name it, and it's been cut. And what's particularly troubling about that is that our students out here in rural Minnesota are going to compete against students from the metropolitan area. And whether you're in Edina or in Minnetonka, Minnesota students deserve similar opportunities. That's something that the Minnesota Miracle achieved, you know, some 30-something years ago, back when we had a legislature that got along. Now, I do want to say one thing, that when it comes to student achievement, money alone won't fix all the problems. If the school district in my area is failing, that's on me to become an active part of the community. And that's one of the reasons that I volunteer with Kinship Partners And one of the reasons that I encourage anybody to get involved with their local school district with reading programs, mentorship programs, and things like that. To be involved in a student's life is something that will positively impact them and will enrich your community greatly into the future, too.
Thank you. Mr. Lueck.
Yes, one of the big problems that I see, and it's critically important that we stand up for rural Minnesota on this issue. If you take a look, the metro schools, for example, in Minneapolis, per capita state aid to those kids are $14,000 apiece. Boy, Aiken, $8,600. McGregor, $10,900. There's just no excuse to treat the kids in rural Minnesota that different from the kids in the metro area. Education should be a fair thing. Every kid is entitled to. Boy, I'll get down there and I'll go to work on that issue. And this isn't a Republican or DFL issue. This is legislators that just don't understand. Every kid deserves the same opportunity in Minnesota. So, boy, that's a big one for me, and I'll go to work on it.
Thank you. Mr. Radinovich, would you like a rebuttal?
Yeah, I would. I appreciate my opponent's dedication to education, but I think that we're coming up on what might be a common theme here tonight, and that is that to expand the educational opportunities in districts like Crosby, Ironton, and in Aiken, you're going to need funding. And the recurrent theme down at the legislature has been that the party that's been in the majority, my opponent's party, has been reluctant to give up any additional revenue. So we've, over the last couple of years, been looking at a budget that's all cuts. And right now there's a reliance on property tax levies in districts like ours. Right now, 90% of the districts across Minnesota are using property tax levies to pay their bills. What that does in a community without means like Aiken or Crosby Ironton is it puts people against their own financial limitation. They have an interest in education, but they can't voluntarily raise their own property taxes. So the state needs to step up and do something, and it's going to take revenue.
Thank you. Mr. Lueck.
Oh, certainly. I don't share Joe's belief that this huge problem that's going on for over a decade was created by the last 2 years of the Republican majority down there in St. Paul. This is a DFL and this is a GOP problem, and I'm not going to put up with this silliness of it's one party or the other. It's a problem in St. Paul. It's got to be fixed. It's a 10-year problem. We've had a Democratic governor. We've had a Republican governor. And neither one of them could solve it, but we need to get down there and do something about it.
Thank you. Mr. Wyman has the next question, and it will be directed towards Mr. Lueck.
Thanks, Ray, and thanks to both of you for joining us tonight to share your views with viewers. Let's talk some more about the state tax system. You appear to have different opinions on taxes, so let's dive into that a little bit more. What's your view on the state tax system? Is it fair? And what changes, if any, would you advocate for?
Well, for starters, we're brutalizing our businesses. We're driving businesses to South Dakota, North Dakota, Iowa, and Wisconsin, simply because we just can't get it right on business taxes. The problem with that is that drives out people that can pay income tax, that can pay sales tax. That in turn we can send right back to the schools. So it's just it's a loop that we've got to fix. We're losing businesses. That's the first and most important thing, is we've got to get our economy going. If you look at where our revenue comes from, it comes from primarily from sales tax and income tax. You got to have jobs that create income for people, and the ability to pay that sales tax. I mean, it sounds simple, but boy, when we bog these businesses down with unnecessary property, the business property tax is a good example. Our neighbors don't have that, so they just leave and go to North Dakota, go to South Dakota. We've got to fix that. I mean, you can't get revenue if you drive people out of the state that are creating jobs.
Thank you, Mr. Radinovich.
Yeah. So the problem with the tax system over the last couple of years is that we've become reliant on property taxes. So there's been a refusal to address a more comprehensive approach to taxes down at the legislature, and as a result of that, there's been cuts to local government aid, and there have been the repeal of the homestead tax credit, which directly affected those of us in outstate Minnesota, especially. one thing that we ought to do, or rather that we ought not to do, is in a time of a recession when people are losing their jobs, when people are struggling to make ends meet, to put the property tax on those people is particularly hard. So I'd like to see a tax system that addresses the needs of Minnesota, the business climate. I'm struggling a little bit here, but what I want to say is basically that we become over-reliant on the property tax system because there's been a refusal to address taxes in a more comprehensive manner, and as a result of that, we've seen a 25% tax increase in my opponent's own backyard there, which is not his fault, but certainly it's affecting our neighbors.
Thank you. Mr. Lueck.
Yes, on this property tax thing, I'm getting sick and tired of people kicking around this property tax deal, and they're going to reinstate a failed program. This homestead credit, when I was a county commissioner, we were promised to get that hack of money, and then the legislature turned around and did the formula different. We didn't get it. I'll give you an example. They brutalized the counties. They brutalized the cities. In 2010, the cities were promised $82 million in equivalent to hack of local government aid. The legislature saw fit to send them 12. You got to end that scam. They did it, and they need to leave it alone. The people that have the most impact on your property taxes are guys like me. When I was a county commissioner, I set your levy for Aiken County. I was one of the 5 that had to make that decision every year. Your city council does it. That's who makes those decisions. Everybody else tinkers around the edge. And we need to leave that system alone for local units of government and get the legislator out of that.
Thank you. Mr. Radinovich, any rebuttal there?
Yes, please. Property taxes went up $370 million in the last session alone, which brought it to the highest level in Minnesota history. Over the last decade, property taxes on homeowners have doubled, and property taxes on farm owners have gone up 150%. Now, I understand that those decisions are made at the local level on the property tax levy, but when you've got higher than average unemployment and highest in years, and people in those cities and counties are relying on services, those people at the county level are not left with many choices. And so I feel like a more fair tax system that keeps an even balance between the property tax, the sales tax, and the income tax is something that will allow rural Minnesota to flourish.
Thank you. The next question will come from Mr. Hall, and it will be directed first to Mr. Radinovich.
Thanks, Ray. So what do you think are the fundamental economic strengths of Aiken County? Is it timber, tourism, small business? How would you evaluate that economic potential for Aiken County?
I do think that, Aiken County is about 30% bigger than Crow Wing County and also has about 1/4 of the population. There's an opportunity for timber, especially in the northern parts. There's a lot of tree farms up there. Additionally, there's the Kennecott mining development out by Tamarack. So it is a natural resources rich area. As my opponent well knows, there's a good deal of agriculture that goes on in Aiken County and in rural southern Crow Wing County. So we want to make sure that we protect our farmers, that we allow expansion of natural resource-based economy. And beyond that, in the area south of Aiken, which is what I would consider lake country, you do have a lot of tourism, a lot of seasonal property people who come up, spend their money on Main Street and whatnot. So we can, if we look at Minnesota as a whole, what we need to be doing is strengthening the overall economic situation so that people down in the metropolitan area have the opportunity to come up and visit our area. Over in the Cuyuna Range there, we've got the new mountain bike trails. They've had 15,000 riders in the first year and more this year. So we've got an opportunity to really develop some resources here.
Thank you. Mr. Lueck.
Yes, first and foremost, the strength in Aiken County as well as Crow Wing County are the people there with the talent and initiative to make a living and really build some wonderful communities. Joe's absolutely right. We're timber in Aiken County, particularly the northern part. We do agriculture, all types of agriculture. That was the birth of the wild rice farming industry in the nation. My dad worked in the mines over in Crosby, Ironton, and there's a possibility in the future that there may be mining again in the Tamarack area. That's a long ways off, if at all. We don't know, but we'll see. The thing that we're missing, and this is something I did right out of high school, was got into manufacturing. I worked at the Aiken Iron Works back in 1968 for the short time before I had to leave and go into service. We need that type of job, good jobs, small manufacturing. We got much more room. We got the talent there. We just need to get the businesses in there. And the tourism and recreation industry is big. It's big in this country. We've done a good job over in Aiken County and Crow Wing County. I was directly involved as a county commissioner with our land department. We've got a wonderful snowmobile and ATV trail system, bike system, all kinds of stuff over there. That's important, but let's remember those higher paying jobs are going to be in the manufacturing, timber, those types of things. Tourism, if you own the restaurant, that's fine, but you think about the other jobs in there, they don't pay quite as much, and it's a little tougher to raise a family if you're waiting tables or punching a cash register. So we've got to keep that whole works working for us, but get some manufacturing in there.
Thank you. Mr. Radinovich, any further comments?
I certainly agree that it'd be great to have some additional manufacturing in the area. One thing I want to mention, though, is that it all comes back to education. And what I mean by that is when you have strong schools in your area and you're growing talent right in your backyard, and those students, furthermore, see a future for them there. So they see a strong school district, they see something that they want to be a part of and that they could raise a family in. That's going to bring people to this area. And so what we need are entrepreneurs. We need people who can see a future in this area. And when you've had cuts like we've had across these districts with the reliance on property tax levies, certainly I think that makes it more difficult for them to see themselves there. We can take care of the high quality of, or we can take advantage rather of the high quality of life, the low cost of living up here, and certainly we'd like to see more of all development.
Mr. Lueck, any further comment?
Yes, but I guess I see it a little bit different. We can provide world-class education. We already do. I've got a niece that's a school teacher. I've got sisters retired school teacher, two brother-in-laws that are retired school teachers. They do a good job. But what's happening here is our children and our grandchildren are leaving because we don't have the industry here now. We need to get that in here, and we do that by straightening out the way we treat businesses in Minnesota, and particularly how we treat businesses in rural Minnesota. That's the approach I would take. We can talk about doing education 100 times better, but you've got to have that good job available there for them, or they have to leave. That's just a fact of life. We've seen it time and time again here, and we need to fix that.
Thank you. The next question will come from Mr. Wyman. It will be directed towards Mr. Lueck.
Well, whoever's elected, you'll be a freshman lawmaker down at the state capitol. And while we're talking about a lot of different topics tonight, all important, what's your number one priority? What's the one issue you want to hang your hat on when you head down to St. Paul?
Well, first and foremost, having experience on a county commission board where you worked in a nonpartisan basis, it's getting the right things done for rural Minnesota. That's my number one priority. Boy, right after that, though, we've got to get something going here on our economy up here so we can keep those kids and grandkids here.
Thank you. Mr. Radinovich.
Yeah, my number one priority would be education, jobs and education. But as I had mentioned earlier, I believe that jobs flow from a solid education that provides students an opportunity to connect their learning in the classroom with the career in front of them. And that's why I feel like a lot of these cuts to our school programs are really short-sighted. We've cut half of the shop classes in Crosby-Ironton, so where we used to build a Habitat for Humanity home and kids would have the opportunity to learn how to swing a hammer, to wire a house, we no longer do that. Crosby was way ahead of its time 10 years ago when we had a networking class in Crosby. As a result of budget cuts, we had to cut that. And so what we're losing are a means of directly connecting classroom experiences to careers in front of students. And furthermore, as I had mentioned earlier, when you have a strong education, You have people who can see themselves staying in the community. You have people who have an opportunity to be entrepreneurs, to start a business, to call it home. Because, you know, before we get those manufacturing jobs up there, somebody has to decide to come up there. And I fundamentally do not believe that a way to attract businesses, or rather the model that we want to see in Minnesota, is engaging in a race to the bottom with lower wages, less benefits, and a tax system that doesn't allow us to build the high-quality workforce that Minnesota has been known for. Minnesota is home to 21 Fortune 500 companies, which is most per capita in the nation. And it's a result directly of the positive education we've had. However, Minnesota's fallen on the top 10 in education funding and is now ranked 22nd. Our test scores are slipping as well, and I believe that there's no better way to make sure that a student or a person later in life is able to provide for themselves rather than, the best way is to give them a good education.
Mr. Lueck.
Yes, I certainly don't disagree with Joe that we've got a duty to provide every generation with at least a better better education and opportunity that we were provided. And I do agree on the shop classes. I'll tell you, I went that route when I went through high school. We partnered. We were able to partner with industry in those days. I was able to take the last hour and go over and work at the Aiken Iron Works on my senior year, where I got to work with my hands in the welding and machining stuff. That led me to a career in the Navy where I had the opportunity to work on nuclear reactors, work with some of the A+, B+ students. We did all kinds of stuff, and ultimately was assistant repair officer at a ship repair facility over in Asia for the United States Navy. So we've got to focus on it. I agree with Joe there. We're leaving the kids that can wire, they can weld, they can do those kind of things behind, and we've got to fix that. But you still got to have that job when they get out of school.
Mr. Radinovich, any closing thoughts there?
Yeah, I still would like to point out, as I said earlier, that we went from a top 10 funding in the nation for education to 22nd. Our test scores are slipping as a result of that. We've got one of the highest education gaps, achievement gaps rather, in the country right now. And I've long said that it's not just a racial component, but it has more to do with the type of background a student has. So students from modest means, from lower income levels, are really struggling to make it through high school, to connect themselves to a career. And I think that's a grave injustice, and we're not going to be able to fix that without revenue. You can't do it without money. When we cut these budgets, it's the extracurricular classes, or the non-core classes, shop classes, wiring classes, computer networking classes that are cut first.
Okay, thank you. Our next question will come from Mr. Hall, and it'll be directed towards Mr. Radinovich.
Yeah, education spending in the state budget, it's the biggest part of it. I think it's about 40% of the state budget, around in there. The second largest area of spending for the state is health care, and that is also the fastest growing part of the budget in the state budget. Also, a lot of our people, like the rest of the nation, we're getting older, and that it's expected that the pressure on the state budget is actually going to continue to increase for spending on health care. So just some of your thoughts on, if not controlling health care costs, meeting the pressures and the demands on the state budget for health care.
I'm aware that health care is the fastest growing sector of our budget. 2/3 of the voters in District 10B are over the age of 50, and half of them are over the age of 65. So this is an important issue to them. And one thing that we don't do well in this country is control health care costs. Healthcare costs in America rise faster than any other nation in the world, and we pay more per capita than any other nation in the world. And so the problem is basically, how do you bend that cost curve? Now, I've got a friend recently who, unfortunately, is now a quadriplegic. She dove off a boat and hit her head on a pile of rocks, and a tragedy ensued. The problem, however, is that she didn't have health insurance, and she's going to be faced with tens of thousands of dollars in medical bills and with no ability to pay for it whatsoever. And so I believe that everybody has an obligation to get health insurance, because that spending is then passed on to consumers at these hospitals. That's one of the #1 drivers in healthcare costs. And we're not going to be able to address our needs going forward unless we can get a grip on healthcare spending.
Thank you. Mr. Lueck.
Health care is a tough one, and at this point we're not sure where that's going to go on a national level. We've got to drive those costs down. I'll come back to competition. You take a look at working with your eye doctor if you have to have glasses like me and some of us other older elderly folks. You work with your dentist. You know, there's real competition there. You can just look here in Brainerd. You've got all kinds of optometry shops and dental shops, and they don't all charge the same price. They all do a good job. We need to look at that whole model, and we need to fix it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I've got the answer, and I'm certainly not going to tell you that the right thing to do is to order everybody out there to just you're going to go get health care or else, or health insurance or else. But we've got to really work on that, and that's something that really going to be a big challenge this next 2 years and beyond.
Thank you, Mr. Radinovich.
I'm good.
Any other comments? Mr. Lueck, any other comments?
No,
Okay.
It's a tough one.
All right, we'll move on to the next question that will come from Mr. Wyman, and it'll be directed towards Mr. Lueck.
Well, I think most people would agree that becoming less dependent on foreign oil would be a good thing. In fact, the Rasmussen report's poll from earlier this year found that 63% in the poll thought doing that was more important than lowering the price of gas. There are many ideas out there for ways to lower our dependence on foreign oil. I'd like to hear what you feel are the best ways to go about it.
Boy, that's an easy one. We've got to get the government out of the way. You know, we're squabbling over a pipeline that would bring oil from Canada. We've got to look at this on a North American basis. You know, pipe fitting, building pipelines, working in the energy industry. There's great jobs, and again, that's for the A and B students. That's a challenging area where we need engineers, chemists, the whole works. It's just inexcusable. We are the nation that put men on the moon. My generation had a big piece in doing that, and I'm just disgusted that we've let the American people down. We've got the energy in this country. You know, we've fallen behind on building nuclear reactors. We squabble about whether we can properly use coal. We don't know what to do with the natural gas. We've got to fix that. We just got to grow up on this and get on with it. I mean, for a country that is as great as ours to be as silly and squabbly about this, it's just disgusting. So I'm ready to go to work on that as best we can here at the state level, but it's a national problem, and it's really embarrassing.
Thank you, Mr. Radinovich.
I feel like my opponent might have checked my notes before the debate here. I agree with him, particularly on the reference to you know, our moonshot back in the 60s. We are the greatest nation in the world, and we need to start you know, acting in such a way. And I think that you know, really means that we ought to invest in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We need to have those students who are able to solve problems for the future. I don't disagree necessarily on the pipeline. I see that as a good opportunity for jobs. I will point out, however, that it wouldn't impact oil prices anytime in the near future, and probably not even really in the next decade. So, you know, it's got to be more comprehensive than that. I know it's a convenient thing to say, but you know, I certainly believe we could more domestic oil production, more domestic coal production, but really, in the future, what we need to do is get off of fossil fuels, because they do have a significant impact on our environment. I don't disagree on nuclear. I think that you know, France gets a very significant percentage of their energy from nuclear energy. They've found a way to enrich it, re-enrich the uranium, so that they're only using 5% disposal. You know, also I didn't hear him mention wind or solar, which I think is maybe a party issue, but you know, we do need to make those part of the basket as well, because there are jobs to be had there as well in building turbines and you know, making ourselves less dependent on foreign energy, which is a very important thing.
Thank you, Mr. Lueck.
No, we got general agreement on this. I'll point out, though, we've got a state law that says we're not going to build nuclear power plants in the state of Minnesota, and that was a joint effort by both the GOP and the DFL. By, you know, we couldn't repeal it under a Democratic governor. We put it in under a Republican governor. That's silly. Do you know who works on those nuclear reactors, on those submarines and those aircraft carriers? Your kids and your grandkids, your B and A students. That is really a tough place to succeed in. You've really got to have your A game on to be able to work in that world. That's, it's inexcusable that we're going to dumb down our kids here and say, you can't handle doing nuclear reactors? We've got reactors in the state. That's a disgrace, and I get really disgusted when I see legislators that over the last decade have been so short-sighted and absolutely dumb down our kids. I know they can do that. I've watched them run nuclear submarines and those reactors and the power plants.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Radinovich. Any other comments?
I think we're in general agreement on this issue.
Okay. Our next question will come from Mr. Hall, and it'll be directed towards Mr. Radinovich.
Yeah, Aiken and Crow Wing counties are rich in water. And of course, last June we saw Aiken go underwater in a lot of places too. So I'd like you to just kind of address some of the environmental issues to protect our water resources, as well as are you hearing a lot from people in your district about better ways to manage the flood potential for Aiken County?
Well, there's several aspects, I guess, to this question. And one, water, I think that a common thing that we would be talking about are invasive species, things like curly-leaf pondweed and Eurasian milfoil, zebra mussels, etc. And, we really need to figure out a way to contain the spread of those. I know I just read an article the other day about lake associations in this district are stepping up, and they want to, create these lake improvement districts where they basically voluntarily tax themselves. The only downfall I see in that is that it's a patchwork approach to a systemic problem. So, if one lake has a lake improvement district, but the one next to it doesn't, and the spread, can come between those lakes there. So that's an issue. In regards to flooding, I know that it was a big problem this year. I know that it affected a lot of the farmers out in Aiken County. I saw that Representative McElpatrick on her debate on Monday had mentioned that in the flood bill, there was relief for Aiken County farmers who had lost part of their hay. I believe we're all in this together. I believe that's a important thing to do to protect those farmers. And as far as engineering and the flood protection, I have to say this, and I say it oftentimes in a debate, is if there's one thing people don't like, it's a know-it-all politician. If there's one thing they like less than a know-it-all politician, it's a 26-year-old know-it-all politician. And so I'll defer to the experts on that. I'm a good listener and I'm a quick study, so I'd talk to the people who know something about it.
Thank you. Mr. Lueck.
Yes, we got our share of water over at Aiken County, Carleton, St. Louis, here in Crow Wing also this summer. That was probably hopefully a once-in-a-lifetime event that we witnessed over there. I'll talk a little bit about this flood protection, and Representative McElpatrick did a great job on working for all the folks, particularly the ag folks that had to deal with that flooding issue, not just in Aiken County too, because it involved Carleton and St. Louis. And this is an example where be careful what you ask for. We've got a flood diversion channel north of Aiken that the Army Corps of Engineers designed and was built in 1950. They floundered around and basically dumped it on the local residents, and Aiken County ended up responsible for it. I was part of the commissioners that made a decision to finally accept responsibility for that. There's an area where we truly need help from the federal government, because that's a part of that whole Mississippi River system, and the more water we can pass by Aiken, the less problems it causes up at Big Sandy Lake and up at Pogagama and clear up to Bemidji. And that's an area where we need to kind of punch the federal government off the dime instead of have them run around worrying about 10 square foot of wetland someplace. Let's get the big things done, and that's an area where I'll continue to work on. I've worked on that as a county commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Radinovich. Any rebuttal there?
No.
Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to the next question. Mr. Wyman will direct that towards Mr. Lueck.
If you are elected, do you see any areas where you would differ with your party's platform and vote opposite of your party's platform, but perhaps for something you feel strongly in or that you feel is to benefit your district that is opposite of what your party believes in?
Well, as I said, GOP and the DFL got to share the misery that they've caused by shifting those school funds, and I will stand up for rural Minnesota, and I don't care what my party decides to do on school funds. This guy won't support that kind of stuff, and same thing. I'll I will go there to represent the people of this district, and that's not a GOP or DFL issue. It doesn't matter what it is. I will stand up for rural Minnesota and for 10B, and if that means I got to buck my party, bring them on.
Thank you. Mr. Radinovich.
I'm a strong proponent of the Second Amendment. I've got an A- rating from the NRA. I know that gun rights have been an issue, over the past year or over the past decade, really. I fundamentally believe in the right to bear arms. I don't agree with some of the more alarmist thinking of members of my party, and I think that protecting our hunting culture and the right of people to bear arms is an important part of life in northern Minnesota.
Mr. Lueck, any rebuttal there?
No, I agree with Joe on that one.
Okay. Our next question will come from Mr. Hall and will be directed towards Mr. Radinovich.
Okay, on November 6th, Minnesota voters will be asked to approve or turn down 2 proposed constitutional amendments, one on the photo voter ID amendment, which would require every eligible voter to have a state-approved photo identification in order to vote. The other one has to do with recognizing marriages between a man and a woman. And just how do you both feel about both those issues? How would you vote?
Well, I'll be voting no on both constitutional amendments, and I'll deal with the voter ID amendment first. And my basic argument there is, number one, I think that the Constitution is much too inflexible a place to deal with the ramifications of that decision. And so what I mean by that is that we've got a rapidly emerging technology. We've got the ability to check pictures with the DMV, database right at the polling location, and that was actually an alternative proposal that was proposed when this was being discussed, and it wouldn't have prevented anybody from being able to cast their vote, and I believe that it was a better alternative. We also have many mail ballot precincts in this district. This photo ID amendment puts those mail ballot precincts in jeopardy. It will incur additional costs at the county level, and I think be an unnecessary burden. On the marriage amendment, I just don't think that the Constitution is a place to deal with that. It doesn't change the existing law. It makes nothing legal that was previously illegal. And I think it's a poor place to deal with an issue like that. I think that's why my opponent was talking about tough decisions earlier. I think that's why you put a legislature in place, is to make those tough decisions. I don't think legislating through the Constitution is the appropriate thing to do. I'd hate to see us become California. So.
Thank you. Mr. Lueck.
Yes, I lived in California when I was in the service, and guess what? We had to show our ID to vote. It's the way it worked. You know, there's 30,000 people in the town I lived in, and they didn't know everybody by face, but they sure wanted you to identify yourself before you got that ballot. My opponent here, Joe, sounds like he wants to refight the whole process that got us these 2 amendments. The fact of life is they're on the ballot. And neither Joe or I had anything to do there. I will certainly vote for the voter ID amendment. I've got no issue with that. I would just ask all of you to think real hard about who you're going to send down to St. Paul. You send me down there, and I'll make darn sure this doesn't cost us a whole bunch of money, and there'll be no muss, no fuss. You don't have to worry about mail-in balloting going away or anything like that. I will not let that happen. We're going to protect our military, but be careful about who you send down there, because you've got this big prediction of how much it's going to cost, and that seems to be from the folks that don't want it to happen. Well, I'll deal with what happens if it passes. I guarantee you I'll do my best to make that cost minimal, if any at all. On the marriage amendment, that's a matter of conscience. That's a matter of your religious belief, how you're brought up, and I'll certainly vote on that. I believe that's a real simple question, and I'll vote yes on the marriage amendment also.
Thank you. Mr. Radinovich?
Yeah. My opponent said that he'll go down to St. Paul and make sure that the voter ID amendment doesn't cost us anything. I guess I'd like to hear maybe some specifics on how he plans to do that. And furthermore, I believe that during the 2010 election cycle, Both candidates of both parties were campaigning on jobs, jobs, jobs. But instead of jobs, 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 what we got were 2 constitutional amendments. And so I think it's a matter of priority. And now if you send me down there, I'll do what I say I'm going to do. I'm not going to waste time putting 2 amendments on the ballot like the previous legislature did.
Okay, Mr. Lueck?
Well, again, let's get back to what's going to happen after November 6th. Those amendments are going to pass or they're not going to pass. If the voter ID amendment passes, I will do my best to make sure that doesn't cost us little or anything. How many in this room don't have the ability to come up with some type of reasonable identification right now that you can take a look and simply verify that the guy sitting there, the gal sitting there, is got some type of a verifiable ID? This is really pretty simple stuff. It's amazing what I hear on the doorstep, like, what's that all about? I mean, didn't we have to do that already? I'm just astounded. We have to identify ourselves many ways every day, so I mean, it's again a lot of muss and a lot of fuss about something that we'll have to make a decision on.
All right, thank you. Come to our final question, and the question will be asked by Mr. Wyman, and it'll be directed towards Mr. Lueck.
Okay, and we'll stay on social issues. Tell us where you stand on abortion, pro-life or pro-choice, and what types of legislation would you support?
I'm definitely pro-life. My stance on that, and at this point, I think we just probably we need to focus on jobs and those types of things. If legislation does come up, I will certainly support the pro-life side of that, but we need to get good jobs so we don't have problems in our culture relative to building strong families, and that's how you really solve the abortion problem is that family network that is loving and caring for our children.
Thank you, Mr. Radinovich.
Well, I've got mixed feelings on the issue. I was born and raised Catholic. And so that value system was instilled in me, and it runs deep. On the other hand, I don't know if I feel comfortable telling someone what they can and can't do. I do believe that, as Mr. Lueck said, the best way to prevent things like that are to make sure that people have a strong, healthy network, that they have a good job where they're able to take care of themselves. And furthermore, I think that preventing unwanted pregnancies is really what this is all about. So for each of the last 20 years, the number of abortions in America has gone down, and I think it's directly a result of better education about how our bodies work, access to contraception, and the ability for people in those positions to get counseling and get help. So,
Mr. Lueck?
And another small point, I agree with what Joe said there, but another small point that I would like to add, and that is we seem to have so much red tape and so difficult for families to adopt. We do have children that, for whatever reason, they've lost their parents, or we need to do a much better job. We're bringing kids in from other parts of the world because apparently it's easier to adopt kids from China, from Russia, and let's put our children that don't have parents first. And that's an area that again leads to that. Let's get those children around a loving family.
Thank you. Any comments, Mr. Radinovich? Closing there.
Sounds good to me.
All right. We come to the closing portion of our debate. Each candidate has 2 minutes to make closing comments, and we'll start with Mr. Radinovich.
Well, again, I wanted to thank everybody who was here in the room tonight, helping out with the debate, the moderator, the panelists, KAXC, Lakeland Television, Morrison County Record. I do appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. For me, and really what this is about, is a path forward for Minnesota. The question is, are we going to be a state that invests in our workforce and puts the path in front of us, a path that's full of prosperity and a better future by way of making sure that our kids are educated, by making sure that we have access to high-paying, good jobs with positive benefits, or are we going to engage in a race to the bottom with lower taxes and lower services and try and compete with states like Mississippi? I believe that Minnesota, for a long time, has protected its workforce and fought to maintain good schools, but that's under threat right now. And we've got this great state with 21 Fortune 500 companies with a thriving metropolitan area. And right now, where we're really lacking is in rural Minnesota. And what we need is someone who can go down there and get along and work together and not be a flexible, or an inflexible ideologue. I think that what we could really use down there with 40 legislators leaving office is a good infusion of new blood. And I look forward to the opportunity to get around the district and meet those of you who might be tuning in tonight that haven't met me. And certainly I hope to hear your concerns, and I wish you all a good night.
Thank you. Mr. Lueck.
Well, I too would like to thank our viewers first for taking time out of their busy schedule to hear Joe and I, and a special thanks to the panel and the staff here and Lakeland Television for hosting this debate. I hope this forum has provided everyone with a perspective on who I am and who Joe is, what you can expect from either one of us. I'll just say this, you can count on me to always level with you. I learned that a long time ago from my parents, and I'll put the interests of this district, 10B, first. I'm not beholden to any special interest groups or political parties. I'm long enough in the tooth that I'm truly my own man. I won't hesitate to buck that party line on any issue that's not good for rural Minnesota or our small cities here in 10B. Returning to Minnesota 15 years ago, what I did before that does have some relevance. My family and I lived in many places in the United States while I was in the Navy, and also lived over in Europe and Asia for a fair amount of time. We saw and learned many things over those years. And the biggest thing we learned was spending time out of Minnesota and out of the United States is just how truly blessed we are to live in this country, and especially in Minnesota. And I go to St. Paul, and I will definitely do my best to protect that. So I ask for your support, and thank you for your patience staying up this late. Thank you very much.
Thank you to both of our candidates. On behalf of Lakeland Public Television, thank you for keeping your debate on time and keeping it very civil. It was a joy to work with you, gentlemen. We'd like to remind everyone that if you have someone who would like to see these debates later on in 24 hours, they will be posted on our website. That's lakelandpublictelevision.org or lptv.org, and you can watch those at any time. You've been watching Debate 2012. We're live from the Brainerd Studios. My name is Ray Gildow. Don't forget to tune in to your 10 o'clock news on your local station, Lakeland Public Television. Good evening.